Your Locked On Blackhawks, your daily podcast on the Chicago Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome on in to another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your number one sports podcasting network where we bring you your team every day. I'm your host, Jack Bushman. If you want to go and check me out on X, you can do so at Jack Bushman2. On today's episode, I'll break down Teuvo Teravainen in Finland, advancing into the quarterfinals in Milan, as well as my thoughts on the rest of the Olympics so far. And then in segment 3, I'll discuss when the Blackhawks can expect Anton, Frondell, and Sacha Boisvert to sign their entry-level contracts later on in the season. Or if you're someone who specifically tuned into today's episode to hear about Frondell and Boisvert's projected arrivals, you can easily jump to that point in today's episode because I have everything time-coded down in the description, which is something I do on every single episode of Locked On Blackhawks, just as a reminder. And speaking of reminders, if you're watching on YouTube right now, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And even if you are someone who regularly tunes in through an audio platform, jump on over to YouTube for me if you could and hit that subscribe button. It's 100% free, will not cost you anything, and helps me out in a major way in growing my platform. But all right, enough of that. Happy Monday, everyone. Hope you all are having a wonderful start to your week, and hope you all have been enjoying some of the lovely weather that we've been blessed with recently in the Chicagoland area, which feels mighty good considering how brutal this winter has been. Really feels like it's been one of the most rugged winters we've had in Chicago in quite some time. So feels good to have gotten outside. I finally broke out the golf clubs and hit some balls over the weekend for the first time this year. And believe it or not, fingers crossed, knock on wood, weather permitting, as there is some rain projected in the forecast, I could actually be hitting the golf course for the first time this year on Wednesday as well. So hope you all have been enjoying some of the beautiful weather that we've been getting recently, and hope you all have been enjoying the Olympic break so far as well. But with the Blackhawks going back to practice tomorrow, as they have an optional one down in Chicago, and also with the Olympics ramping up, it's time to get back into the swing of things here on the show, which I'm very excited to do. And kicking things off here today, the 2026 Olympic hockey competition is now completed group play, as each of the 12 countries participating have played their first 3 games, and it's the United States and Canada, unsurprisingly, along with Adam Gajan in Slovakia, although as I broke down in my Olympic preview episode last week, Gajan is serving as the team's number 3 netminder, did not hit the ice for any of their 3 group play games, but Slovakia nonetheless still winds up surprising everyone and winning Group B. And then Teuvo Teravainen in Finland have also punched their tickets into the quarterfinals, which will begin in Milan on Wednesday. And I wanted to talk first today about Teuvo Teravainen and Finland with a real strong turnaround after dropping the opening game of the tournament and getting upset by Slovakia 4-1. Really bounced back, picked up a major, massive, whatever you want to call it, 4-1 win of their own over their rival Sweden in their second game to kind of get things back on track, and then went on to rout poor Italy, the host country, 11-0 in their final preliminary round game on Saturday. And with those 2 wins, plus their goal differential, that gave them a really good chance of earning that 4th and final quarterfinal spot. And that wound up being the case as they dodged the 8-team playoff qualification that will be held tomorrow to determine all of the 4 Olympic quarterfinal matchups. And Finland will be playing the winner of Switzerland versus Italy. So barring a miraculous Olympic upset by the host country, likely going to be playing Switzerland in that next round, who also is going to be without Kevin Fiala, a very key piece of their team, as he unfortunately got injured late in a game against Canada, suffered multiple fractures in his left leg, and the Los Angeles Kings confirmed yesterday that he's slated to miss the rest of the regular season, which is just such a gut punch for them. And I really feel for the Kings and their fans. I mean, just a couple of weeks after going and prying Artemi Panarin from the New York Rangers, which feels like a very significant offensive addition for a Kings team that's really struggled offensively these last few years. They play, one of the better defensive team games in all of the league, and that's gotten them into the Stanley Cup playoffs consistently, but they also consistently lose to the Edmonton Oilers early on in the postseason, and it just felt like they didn't have enough offensive firepower. So losing a key piece for both Switzerland and also the Kings for the remainder of their regular season is obviously something you hate to see happen, and is really like a worst case scenario in these Olympics, something that all 32 owners worry about when something like this goes on, and is just really unfortunate for both the Kings and for Switzerland. But for Finland, seems like they're getting a pretty good quarterfinal draw by getting that fourth and final spot, as they'll be playing either a Kevin Fiala-less Swiss group or Italy in their quarterfinal matchup. And compared to the United States and Canada, they won't have to play either of them in the semifinals either. So outside of the United States and Canada, it does feel like, to me at least, that Finland has the third best chance of any team, I guess, including the United States and Canada. I would say they have the third best chance of any country to come away with the gold medal right now. Hasn't been, though, due to a lot of production from Teuvo Teravainen, I'll tell you that, as he's been pretty quiet through Finland's opening 3 games with just 1 assist, went without a point in their opening 2 games, and finally got on the stat sheet in that 11-0 rout over Italy on Saturday. Finland scored 16 goals. He's only been involved on 1 of them. And I also saw Jay Fresh Hockey, who is someone I always recommend all hockey fans follow on social media. I saw that he posted a chart of the top scoring chance contributors by each country. He posted those here today. And for Finland, Teuvo Teravainen ranks 9th in scoring chance contributions among all of their forwards. And 2 of his line mates, Arturi Lehkonen and Sebastian Aho, they've been very productive. They've been very impactful. Teuvo Teravainen just really hasn't, from what I've seen. And Aho ranks 3rd in scoring chance contributions. Arturi Lehkonen ranks 2nd. Mikko Rantanen, even though he only has 4 points in 3 games, and 3 of those came in that win over Italy, he still is 1st in that metric. But Teuvo Teravainen is 9th, behind guys like Yoel Armia and Capo Caco, who, to be fair, I mean, I got to give them a lot of credit. When I broke down Finland in my Olympic preview last week, I said I feel like the top 6 has to do a lot of the heavy lifting. Well, I mean, Rantanen, Hintz, and Granlund haven't been all that dominant by any means. Rantanen hasn't been super dominant. I do feel like he's been their best player, but Teravainen, obviously, Lehkonen and Aho have been really good, and special teams wise, they've been very productive, but Teravainen hasn't done all that much, clearly. But I think the Yoel Armia and Capo Caco contributions from that 4th line have been absolutely massive for Finland, who also have played some of the better team hockey of team defense, I should say, of any country participating in this tournament. But Teravainen also, it's not like he's producing a lot of scoring chances for his line mates either, as he's 6th in chance assists among all forwards on the roster. And then in total, Jay Fresh Hockey also produced a scoring chance contribution breakdown of every forward participating in the Olympics. Teuvo Teravainen ranks 55th. So not all that good of a tournament so far for Teuvo, but if you've been watching the Blackhawks this year, I don't think that's too surprising. But Finland in a really good spot going into the quarterfinals. They get that bye. They avoid the playoff qualification that's going down tomorrow. And we'll have a pretty good draw regardless of who comes away with that playoff qualification win battle between Switzerland and Italy. But there are my thoughts on Teuvo Teravainen's performance so far in the Olympics, and Finland finding a way to be a top 4 team in the preliminary round. Coming up in just a moment, Blackhawks fans, I'll get into my thoughts on the rest of the tournament thus far, including the United States and Canada cruising to group wins. But first, I got to talk about today's sponsor here on Locked On Blackhawks, which is FanDuel. Ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? Well, FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into reality with their NBA sweepstakes. And here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for 2. That's right. Flights, tickets, and the whole experience included. If you're already looking at the board and thinking about a team that can make a deep run, then this is the perfect time to go and lock it in. Why not go and take the chance? All you got to do is visit FanDuel.com in order to get started, and then use your profit boost on an NBA future, and you'll be entered for a chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Go and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Segment 2, just wanted to talk a little bit more about the Olympics since group play is now wrapped up and the tournament has been incredible thus far. Canada and the United States, of course, both go 3-0 to win their respective groups. Canada wins Group A, the United States wins Group C. Canada probably gets it done in more dominant fashion, though, between the two, as they defeated Czechia 5-0 in their opening game, then defeated Switzerland 5-1. That was when Kevin Fiala unfortunately got tangled up with Tom Wilson, who I'm not a huge fan of, despite my over the last year, how much I've spoken about how I believe Tom Wilson absolutely had to be on Team Canada. He is one of my least favorite NHL players, but I do give him a lot of credit for developing his offensive game and becoming a very key piece of the Washington Capitals and being more so than just a goon in this league. Was not one of those dirty plays that we see from Tom Wilson that led to Kevin Fiala getting injured. It was just a very unfortunate play there, but that was a 5-1 win for Canada against the Swiss. And then they wrapped up group play over the weekend with a 10-2 waxing of the French to go and win Group A. Connor McDavid, unsurprisingly as well, leading the way with 9 points, averaging a point per period so far for the Canadians. And let me tell you what, watching him along with Tom Wilson and the kid, 19-year-old Macklin Celebrini as that top line for Canada, it has been a lot of fun watching them buzz together. And I've seen a lot of, I give a ton of respect to JD Young of the San Jose Sharks. JD Young, the host of Locked On Sharks, I should say, as being a host here on the Locked On Podcast Network for a rebuilding team. It's been very fun to watch Macklin Celebrini have a running mate. Will Smith has been good for the San Jose Sharks, but obviously Connor McDavid is at a different level. And to see what Macklin has done through these opening 3 games, 4 goals, tied for the tournament lead in that category. He and McDavid have worked really well along with one another. McDavid with 9 points, Macklin Celebrini with 6. Sidney Crosby has been doing his thing with 6 points. He also just set Canada's all-time Olympic point record in that blowout win over France, as he surpassed Jerome McGinley and now has 16 points in Olympic competition, the most of any Canadian player. And going into the tournament, I said that third line of Sidney Crosby, along with Mitch Marner and Mark Stone, has the ability to absolutely cause havoc on both ends of the ice. They've absolutely done that so far. It's been a cruise for Canada through their opening 3 games. I will say, Czechia, a very good team, but the Swiss in their last one, and then France going into the quarterfinals, not necessarily as battle tested, and obviously can turn that into a positive as they've blown out all of the teams that they've played thus far and done what they're supposed to do when it's best on best like this, considering the roster that they have. I do think it is worth pointing out that they really haven't found themselves in any form of adversity whatsoever, although that itself isn't all that surprising. They are going to be playing the winner of Czechia and Denmark in the quarterfinals, and of course, that could potentially set up a matchup with the United States in the semifinals, as they are on the same side of the bracket. So should Canada and the United States go and take care of business in the quarterfinals, then they'll be having a date with one another in the semis, which will be appointment television. And of course, a rematch of the final in the 4 nations face-off. For the United States, they opened up the Olympics with a nice 5-1 win over Latvia. The Denmark game was where things got a little bit hairy there. Jeremy Swayman allowed that goal from center ice. It was a 1-goal game going into the third period, but the United States turned it on when they needed to, ended up coming away with a 6-3 win, and then took care of business as well in their final game of match play against Germany yesterday, winning 5-1. There was, of course, that epic chirp, I guess I should say, that was caught on a hot mic of Matthew Tkachuk, giving it to Leon Draisaitl for the Germans. Germany, by the way, was my sleeper pick going into the Olympics. I thought they could cause some havoc. I'm still not ruling it out for them to do so in the Olympic qualification round tomorrow, or potentially in the quarterfinals should they go that far, but didn't have the preliminary round that I was expecting them to, and it wound up being Slovakia as the sleeper of any of these countries, of course, coming away with the win in Group B. But for the United States, I mentioned what was going to be really key for them in this tournament was Austin Matthews playing better than he did for them at the 4 Nations. I thought he's been really good, leads them with 5 points so far in the tournament. Matthew Boldy as his running mate has been excellent. I said this could be a little bit of a coming out party for Matthew Boldy. I don't know if that's necessarily been the case thus far, but he's been excellent, just like he was at the 4 Nations face-off. Jake Gensel has been good. on that line. They've also given Jack Hughes an opportunity to play along with Austin Matthews, which I really like. I talked about during my preview that Jack Hughes down on that fourth line, it just didn't really make sense for him to have a lot of success there. And while, Brock Nelson in the bottom six, the fourth line has been really good for the United States, still don't feel like that's a natural spot for Jack Hughes, even though he's been good there. I feel like he could do a little bit more, and it just might come to the detriment of someone like Jake Gensel or someone in the top six who will just have to get bumped out if Jack Hughes is getting that spot. The top line with the Tkachuks and Jack Eichel has been pretty good. I was a little worried about, not a ton of speed or playmaking from the Tkachuks on the wing there, but that hasn't slowed down the Americans thus far. And I think Zach Werenski and Quinn Hughes have both been excellent on the defensive side of things. Brock Faber has been not really chipping in offensively along with Jacob Slavin, but that's not what they're here to do. I really do believe the strength defensively and in goaltending lies with the United States. Should they go head-to-head with Canada in the semifinals, I think having Quinn Hughes on this blue line is absolutely massive. Charlie McAvoy, obviously got banged up before the Olympics, but him still being able to suit up on the back end is huge. Zach Werenski's continued over his strong play, being in the Norris Trophy conversation for the red-hot Columbus Blue Jackets, who the Hawks lost to a couple of times going into this tournament. He's been excellent on the back end for the United States. Brock Nelson, even though I kind of gave the U.S. some flack for taking him along with Vincent Trocheck and JT Miller, I didn't think you needed all three of them, but Brock Nelson has really proved his worth. So I've been happy with what the United States have done so far. Obviously, things got a little too dicey against Denmark there, but at the same point in time, like I talked about with Canada, but on the other side of things, I do think it could be good for the United States to have overcome a little bit of adversity together as a group. And they're going to be having a tough matchup likely coming in the quarterfinals, as they're set to face the winner of Sweden versus Latvia, which will be the final playoff qualification game tomorrow at 2:10 p.m. Central Time. But a tough draw for the United States, with Canada being on the same side of the bracket as them, leading to a potential matchup with one another in the quarterfinals. And then Sweden, who feels like the best team of any country that's participating in the playoff qualification, is likely who they're going to be facing in the quarterfinals. So not going to be easy the rest of the way. Not that it is going to be for any country, but when you put Finland's matchups that I just talked about, potentially playing Switzerland without Kevin Fiala, or Italy tomorrow, they're also on the same side of the draw as Slovakia. So not having to play the U.S. or Canada in the semifinal, while also having a favorable matchup in the quarterfinals. Definitely a lot easier of a route for Finland to get to the final than the United States, but you're going to have to go through battles regardless at some point in time to come away with a medal. Germany versus France will be the opening game of the playoff qualification tomorrow at 5:10 a.m. Germans, I'm expecting them to take care of business and still wind up in the quarterfinals. And then Italy versus Switzerland will actually be going on at the same time, 5:10 a.m. Central Time. So two early games, should anyone want to wake up early and tune into those. Czechia versus Denmark will be the third playoff qualification game. That will be at 9:40 a.m. Central Time. Canada will play the winner of Czechia versus Denmark, and then the United States will play the winner of Sweden versus Latvia. That gives Slovakia the winner of Germany versus France in that in the last quarterfinal matchup. All right, there is the latest out of the Olympics. Coming up in just a moment, I'll be getting into more on the Olympics. Don't worry, as I'll talk more about the results from the qualification round probably on tomorrow's episode. I'll be dropping later in the afternoon following Sweden's game against Latvia. Coming up in just a moment, before I close out today's episode, still got to talk about when the Blackhawks can potentially expect more help on the way in the form of two top prospects late in the season. Just want to say thank you to everyone for making Locked On Blackhawks your very first listen, here to start off your day. Segment 3, before I close things out, Frank Saravalli, who is currently not in the best graces with Blackhawks fans, has come on the CHSN pregame show countless times this season, and he's mentioned on a few occasions that the expectation is for both Sacha Boisvert and Anton Frondell, two of the top prospects in the Blackhawks organization. The plan is for both of them to sign their entry-level contracts and join the Blackhawks later on in the season, and those are expected to be Chicago's quote-unquote deadline additions, as they're expected to largely be sellers and probably not add anyone ahead of this year's trade deadline. So I figured it would be a good idea to potentially map out when those two could be joining the Blackhawks, starting with Anton Frondell, third overall pick in the 2025 NHL draft, has had a phenomenal first post-draft season with 22 points, 15 goals, and 7 assists in 34 games for Djurgården in the SHL. And for anyone who doesn't know, the SHL is the top professional league over in Sweden. Anton Frondell, still only 18 years old, not going to turn 19 until May. So going up against the best competition possible in his home country as an 18-year-old, it's been exquisite what he's been able to accomplish. Obviously was tremendous as well for Sweden to help them win gold at the World Junior Championship. Ended up being named best forward there in that tournament. And for Djurgården in the SHL this season, despite him having kind of a questionable role at times, he has played up on the second line more so as of late, but regularly in the first half of the season was down on the third or the fourth line. Well, he's also missed 9 games this year because of the World Juniors and such. He's also been out of the lineup at times questionably. Well, he still leads Djurgården with 15 goals on the season and is also 4th on the team in points, even though he's missed 9 games. So it's been a phenomenal year from Anton Frondell, and rightfully so. A lot of us Blackhawks fans are very excited to see him see what he has in store for his NHL career. The big left-handed shot that he possesses along with Connor Bedard. We obviously need a lot more offensive help right now, so the addition of Frondell is going to be very exciting. And for Djurgården over in the SHL, they currently are 8th in the SHL standings. They have a 16, 19, and 8 record for 61 points through 43 games. And as far as the SHL playoff format goes, 10 teams qualify for the postseason. I believe there's 16 teams total in the league. 10 qualify for the playoffs. The top 6 automatically get buys into the quarterfinals, almost kind of like we're seeing right now in the Olympics, right? While the final 4 have to participate in a play-in round. And currently, Djurgården, as I mentioned, they're 8th in the SHL standings, so pretty comfortably inside that top 10. The team who's currently 11th in the standings, Djurgården, has 7 more points than them, and it is a 52-game schedule. So there's 9 games left in the season for Djurgården, and the postseason officially begins on March 14th in the SHL. So we obviously don't know how long of a run it's going to be for Djurgården in the postseason, but considering they're, middle of the pack team in the league, right on, they're inside that top 10, but it's not a huge gap of such separation. I'm projecting, especially considering how young they are as a team, with Viggo Bjork also being on the squad, and of course Ivar Stenberg, who's projected to be one of the top picks, maybe even the top pick in the 2026 NHL draft. I'm not expecting it to be a very long run for Djurgården, although in hockey anything is possible. So probably going to be, with the postseason starting on March 14th, we're probably thinking somewhere around mid to late March for Anton Frondell. And obviously, I feel like the Blackhawks would probably want to give him a couple of practices, since it'll be a quick transition from him coming over to Sweden, over to North America after going through a grind of a professional season over there. Maybe it's not immediately, sign him and plug him into the lineup, but I'm projecting it somewhere to be around the later stages of March, early April at the absolute latest for Anton Frondell. And when looking at the Blackhawks schedule, they wrap up play in the third week of April. They have 7 games on their schedule in April. So I'm expecting Anton Frondell to probably play somewhere in the neighborhood of 9 to 13, 14, 15 NHL games with the Blackhawks later on in the season. For Sacha Boisvert, he's in the midst of his sophomore season in college hockey, his first year with Boston University after transferring from North Dakota. And it's kind of been a strange year for Boisvert. Definitely not as productive as I thought it was going to be. I really believed he had the ability of being in the Hobie Baker conversation, considering how strong his freshman year was, considering that he was going to be the top line center for Boston University, who had made back-to-back runs to the national championship game, a staple of the Frozen Four, one of the best programs in all of the country. It's been kind of a disappointing year for Boisvert, although he's dealt with injuries. He also got suspended for fighting not all that long ago. It's been a little bit of a weird year for both him and for the Terriers. Boisvert, though, still does have 16 points, only 3 goals, though, in 22 games. And with the shot that he possesses, that's absolutely shocking. But it still sounds like the plan is for him to sign that entry-level deal and join on with the Blackhawks. I'm very interested if anything is going to change on that front, but considering that Saravalli felt comfortable credible enough to report it, even though obviously his reporting is a little bit in question right now. Don't think it should be, but don't also understand how that condition got kept in the dark for so long. Regardless, if Saravalli is reporting it, I'm expecting it to be the case, even though it hasn't been like the ideal sophomore season for Sacha Boisvert and hasn't been the ideal season for Boston University either, as they've fallen out of the top 20 rankings in the last couple of weeks and have a 14-15-2 record for 31 games. They are still fourth in Hockey East play, but they only have 3 games left on their schedule. The conference tournament is right around the corner. It starts on March 11th, and only 16 teams, of course, make the NCAA tournament. So it's not looking too likely that Boston University, they're going to have to play outstanding. They're going to have to go on a run through these final 3 games and then through Hockey East conference play in order to wind up making the NCAA tournament, which is crazy. I know they don't have like some top tier talent as they've had in the last couple of years, right? Like a Macklin Celebrini, but didn't think this was going to be the season that was in store for either Boisvert or Boston University. You never know how the season is going to end, but like I mentioned, Hockey East conference play starts on March 11th. And with the way things have been going for BU, looks like their season may end not too long after that. So we could potentially see Boisvert. I'm thinking he's going to be the one making the jump before Anton Frondell does. But could be right along the same time, considering, like I said, the SHL postseason, that play-in round, which your Garden will potentially have to play in as they're currently the 8th seed. That begins on March 14th, and the Hockey East Conference tournament begins on March 11th. So they could, theoretically come up right around the same time and play, 10 to 15, 16 NHL games with one another. So there is kind of the timeline that I've mapped out for when the Blackhawks and when us fans can expect to see Anton Frondell and Sacha Boisvert, probably right around a month after the Blackhawks return to play on February 26th. Against the Nashville Predators. Still crazy that they're not going to be playing for 10 days, but as head coach Jeff Blashill has put it before the break, they're going to have like a second training camp here, essentially, with these next 9 days to go and practice before action returns on the 26th. But probably 3 weeks to a month after the Blackhawks resume play is when we can expect their trade deadline additions of Sacha Boisvert and Anton Frondell to theoretically sign their entry-level contracts and join the NHL roster. All right, that is going to take care of today's episode of Locked On Blackhawks, everyone. As always, thank you all again for joining me on the show. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and follow Locked On Blackhawks for free as well, wherever you may be listening to your podcast. That way you don't miss out on any of the latest episodes as soon as they become available. And again, if you want to check me out on X, you can do so at Jack Bushman too, but make sure to follow my strictly Blackhawks account at Talkin' Hockey for all the latest Blackhawks news and updates. Until tomorrow's episode, everyone, get outside, enjoy that lovely weather, have a great rest of your day. I'll see you next time on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.